Yeah. Yeah. We can go around. So when I get an update, I'm going to talk to Mark.
Oops, we're good. We live. Good evening. Today is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025 at 6 p.m. We are in the Brecksville-Bobby Heights Education Center, 6638 Mill Road, Brecksville, Ohio. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Public participation is governed by Board Bylaw 0169.1, public participation at board meetings. This meeting will be live streamed via YouTube and will also be recorded for later viewing. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel where all recordings are posted. Item 1B, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Moving on to item 1C, roll call.
Oopsies. Mrs. Galick?
Yeah.
Mrs. Kramer? Ms. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Mara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes. Moving on to item 2A, President's announcements. I don't have much, just want to call out our wonderful PSO organizations. We're going to be going over later in this meeting many contributions they've made to this district, and they continue to do great things for our students, our families, and our district. And so I'm just calling them out right now as a great thank you for another fantastic year of contributions. They're kind of part of the secret sauce of why our district is as good as it is. And so I'm looking forward in a few minutes to hearing all the great things they did. Moving on to item 2B, notice consent agenda. Do any board members wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? No? Okay, we'll move on to item 3, board area of responsibilities. Legislative OSBA liaison, Ellen.
I do have one quick update, which I'll just announce because I heard it on the news on the way here. In case for people who've been paying attention, the Ohio Congress is currently going through budget reconciliation, and there was a lot of things in the budget introduced by the House that were problematic. It's now in front of the Senate and it's being discussed. And if anybody wants to go down to the office and testify, they're still taking testimony tomorrow and Friday. But the quote from the Senate president today was that there is not enough money to fund the fair school funding. So it doesn't appear that that's going to happen, even though, as we all know, there's $1 billion going to vouchers that could be used to fund the fair school funding plan. But anyway, I just am saying that because I've heard on the news on the way over here this evening. Other than that, I'm sure we'll know a lot more at our next board meeting.
Okay, very good. Moving on to Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, Ava.
The CVCC students and staff have been as busy as every other school district at this time of the year with all sorts of recognitions and ceremonies. They held a signing day celebration on May the 5th. 25 students were honored. 2 of them, Isabel Parrish and Nathan Eddy, were from Brecksville-Broadview Heights High School. On Wednesday, May the 7th and Thursday, May the 8th, the class of 2025 was honored during the senior recognition ceremonies. The ceremonies are available on the school's YouTube channel. The student of the year was Emily Sanicki from Cuyahoga Heights High School. Employee of the year was Brody Bard from Revere. The outstanding senior reception was held earlier in the month, honoring the accomplishments of the seniors moving on to fulfill their next levels of accomplishment. The school also celebrated their Outstanding Business Professionals of America, otherwise known as BPA, who qualified and competed in the National Leadership Conference. Sam Lombardo and David Lopez represented Brecksville-Broadview Heights. CVCC members participated in the Cuyahoga Valley Chamber of Commerce State of the Schools Luncheon at the Holiday Inn Rockside on May the 14th. Tuesday, June the 3rd is the last day for students and June 4th is their teacher in service day. As an aside, there were 10 new staff members hired and 4 retirements. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Moving on to curriculum, Tish.
See if I can do Dr. Martin's good service. So, Drexel Broadview Heights state testing results have come in, and our curriculum department, along with building administrators and our teacher-based PLC teams, are busy analyzing the data to help inform instructional practices moving forward. We saw strong improvements in math, science, and social studies. Our focus and work for improvement will continue in ELA in that area. Our district teaching and learning committee met for the last time this year on the 22nd of May, and they focused on finalizing the professional development that will be provided at the beginning of the year in August during those 3 PD days that our teachers get when they return. And we continue to keep up with the mandates of Senate Bill 29. This is going to require constant attention from our curriculum department moving forward. If you're not familiar with what the Senate bill is, it requires districts to review and manage vendors and ed tech resources within the district to ensure that they are providing data privacy standards, parental notification. They're limiting the monitoring of students' activities while they're online or utilizing ed tech resources in the district. So it's a constant need for monitoring, and our curriculum department is focused on that. And then to talk a little bit about teacher leadership in the district, Ms. Beth Adams and Jody Tomsick are 2 of our BBHCSD teachers who've been on assignment this year, and they will be leading teachers and administrators for a day reading summit in Cincinnati on June 25th, titled Bridging the Research to Practice. It sounds like it's going to be a pretty exciting, I can't find the right word. It's a pretty exciting day. And the founder of our letters training, which follows the science of reading, is aligned with science of reading, will be a keynote speaker at it. That's all I have for.
Okay, thanks. Moving on to finance, myself and Tish, nothing new. Faster audit. Transportation, myself, nothing new on that front. Board policy, Lisa and Ellen.
There's nothing new for policy. We're just, we have a final reading on one policy tonight.
Okay, moving on, BBH Schools Foundation, Tish.
Okay, so the Schools Foundation just awarded 66 scholarships on Senior Awards Night, which was May 20th. So last week, 32 were awarded on behalf of families that were funding those scholarships. And then another 34 were utilized using a couple different funding sources. But the main funding source was the fundraising that was done in February by the Schools Foundation. So that was for a total of $44,875 were given to our seniors, which was fantastic. And then the application window is open for our teacher grants. This will be reviewed over the summer and awarded at convocation in the fall. $38,000 from that fundraiser will be distributed through these grants. So.
Great.
Yep.
Schools Foundation, another part of our secret sauce, another Absolutely. Extra organization that does fundraising and really offers great benefits to our students and families. Moving on to safety, Ava and Lisa. Okay, sustainability, Ava and Ellen.
Nothing that I have. Ellen, do you have anything?
No, I just wanted to, Jeff gave us an update on the Rust Belt Riders composting program that started at the elementary school, or in the kitchen at the elementary school at the beginning of the school year. And, you know, we're winding down. So he was able to report how many?
Oh,
I'm looking for
Yeah.
that number. So it's okay.
I'm going to do the ballpark figures that Craig loves. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it was a considerable amount that just the kitchen alone produces each day. We haven't introduced it to the students yet, but just doing it in the kitchens and the preparation of food. So it's been a great partnership. Rust Belt Riders are a great partner. You know, even the drop-off locations, they stay on top of it. We haven't had problems that you would associate with food scraps and everything else. So it's been a great partnership. We have hit the number to have a discount. So I think we're at like 17 community members also use our facility here. So as we get more and more people involved, our rates will go down. But it is an investment on the district's behalf each year to compost, but it's also giving back to the community. So it's a good initiative.
Okay, great. Moving on to PSO, Lisa.
I'm not gonna give a PSO update tonight because PSO is here live in person to give that.
Okay,
I'll
I think
build it out,
that's
don't worry.
later. That's gonna come up next, so sit tight. Co-curricular, extracurricular, Tish and Lisa.
Not really anything. I know off the top of my head, our softball team just won districts and is headed to regionals. And we have track athletes that are trying to qualify for states, for the finals for states on Friday. Let's see what off the top of my head.
Okay, thanks. Permanent improvement facilities, myself and Ellen. I know later in the agenda, we have an asphalt contract that we're going to be approving or voting on. And so we do have some permanent improvements going on this summer, and that's one of them. Is there nothing else, right?
Yeah, well, the West Mill property was.
Oh, right. Well, yes.
I have it in my section.
We have a discussion coming up on some property we own, so stay tuned. It's coming up next. Okay, we're going to move on to item 4, superintendent's communication. I want to turn it over to Jeff.
Yeah, so I have just a couple quick updates and I'll keep them quick as my PSO friends are sweating in the back row, worrying that they might have to present because they showed up tonight. I heard they weren't coming tonight, but anyway, as Mark alluded to, the PSO here at Bristol Broadview Heights, and you could probably repeat this as it says, is not normal, right? And I mean that in such a positive, good way. The amount of work that they do, both out front and behind the scenes to help us as a district achieve the level we do is simply remarkable. As I quickly go down through the list of achievements, we're looking at over 10,000 hours of volunteer hours that our PSOs across our district donate to our district. I mean, you can talk about financial donations and material donations, but actually when somebody donates their time and at that level, they're able to make things extra special. Things such as kindergarten drop-off at the beginning of the school year, just to have extra hands to get our little ones to where they need to go is just simply amazing. When we talk about fundraising, we're upwards of $50,000 a year that our PSOs across the district donate to our district. And it's all the things that are above and beyond. In today's day and age of school funding, we couldn't do some of the things that we do for our students if it wasn't for PSO, school foundation, athletic boosters. And you'd be probably really surprised to realize that it's the same people in all of those groups that continue to give back. It's almost like a graduation plan for our PSO parents. They join PSO as the kids start kindergarten, they're in PSO up through middle school, and then they transition into athletic or music boosters, and then they transition into foundation members, and then they may end up on the school board at one point in time. So it's kind of the graduation plan for many of our PSO officers. I thank them often because they are also some of our strongest advocates. And what I mean by that is they're not afraid to ask me the hard questions when we have meetings behind closed doors and ask, you know, what we're doing as a district and how we're doing. They're able to provide constructive criticism that is used in a very positive fashion. And then more importantly, and probably the thing I'm most thankful for is when there's misinformation circulating throughout town or towns, they are usually the first ones to step in and provide the accurate information. That if I was ever trying to do that in those different medias, I would never get the last word and it would just be a mess. So I appreciate the PSOs taking that accurate information and spreading it. So I can't thank them enough. I mean, Vanessa and Amy are in the room tonight. Thank you very much. But there are so many more that donate a lot of time, energy, and efforts. And we would not be the school district we are without them. So thank you very much for that. They wanted to come and present in person, but imagine that they were busy tonight with other commitments, which they usually are very committed individuals. Hilton Drive update. We're slowly making our way through this process. If I've learned anything through this process is I need to be a little bit more less optimistic on how things will turn and get done. We are going to the planning commission on June 19th, hopefully for final approval on June 19th. Once we get final approval, then we can begin getting things ready to go out to bid. A very ambitious goal of ours was to have this project completed by the time snow flies. It all depends on what the weather's going to be like in the fall and how the bids come in. So we shall see. We're not going to rush it to have a subpar project. So if we have to delay it to spring, we'll delay it to spring. We want to make sure it's done and done right. We've taken our time with this project because it is also involved many other parties in the surrounding neighborhoods that we wanted to make sure that we were sympathetic to how this may change their lives or their properties. And we have worked hard to do that and have a positive relationship with both those individuals as well as the city. And I can't thank the mayor enough for his advice and guidance through the process. We're still moving along. Hopefully at our next meeting, which would be June 25th, we will looking for permission to go out for bid if everything goes as planned. Kindergarten registration is the exact same number as last year. We are right now at 233. We have 200 students registered for full day kindergarten and 33 for half day. So that means we'll have 2 sections of half day kindergarten. So we are trending right along what that enrollment studies have been telling us. So that's a good sign. We thought this number might be a little less this year because we changed the enrollment date from September 30th to August 1st. Haven't really seen a huge change in enrollment to this point. And we have had 2 2 requests to be considered early admittance. So we have had 2 conversations with 2 families in that instance. So that's kindergarten registration. And then I just want to say before we get to it, we have a lot of people in the room tonight. They're not here for public comment because nobody's filled out a form, but we have a lot of our new hires here tonight. And some that could make it who are in town, others couldn't make it. They're on vacation or they live far away. It's just an opportunity for us as a school district to welcome some of our new employees, put a face with a name, because this is by far the most important investment we make as a district. When we make an investment to hire somebody in our district, this is a destination district where people want to work, learn, and enjoy. They usually are here for their whole career. And we're proud of that. And we want to continue that tradition. And it's only fitting that we bring them and welcome them in. So that's why we have so many people in the audience, not for the 5-year forecast, which is later in the meeting, but we'll get to that too. So
I'm taking notes of everyone who leaves.
he is the one that signs the paycheck.
Right.
So moving on in my communications I had, I requested the board, we have information on the agenda about the West Mill property that the district owns, the 20-some acres that are over on the other side of 77. So I guess with that, at our previous meeting, we had discussed what to do with this asset, if we continue to allow it to mature or whatnot. So I guess I would turn this over to the board to have this conversation.
Yeah, and the board's looked at this a few years back about whether we should sell it or hold it. So some information to kind of frame the discussion. We have had 3 appraisals done on the property. So we had an appraisal done in 2018, in 21, and in 22. And you'll see there that the valuation appreciated $185,000 or 26% in 4 years. So holding on to the property has done nothing but enrich us, so to speak, with the valuation going up, which mirrors what you see in this Drexel Bellevue Heights community, where property values have been going up substantially and hopefully will continue to go up substantially. The annual cost for the district to retain this property is essentially zero. Basically, there's no maintenance costs. There's no insurance costs. There's very little cost with this at all, other than as it's listed here, like a sewage bill under $500. So in front of the board is if the district wanted to dispose of the property, there's actually 2 options. One is obviously you could sell the property and put it out and kind of get the highest bid. The second, though, is we could also, as a public municipality, trade the property with another municipality. For instance, when we built our new elementary school, we had an arrangement with the city of Brecksville where we did a swap of land. We gave Central School, we gave the old Stadium Drive property to the city of Brecksville, and then they traded us land on Blossom And so that was basically a real estate deal that you're allowed under Ohio law to do between two public entities. So this property, while selling it is an option, we could also trade it or work out an arrangement with another municipality. And a few years ago, we reached out to the city of Broadview Heights to find out if they had some interest in this property as maybe a trade for help funding a new DARE officer. So that didn't get traction, but again, it's just another piece of the opportunity this property presents should the district hold on to it. The other thing is that if it were sold now, the funds would be deposited into our permanent improvement fund for later use. As of right now, we have no urgent need for a PI project, or there's no urgent PI project pending. So I'll just throw on, my 2 cents, which hasn't changed since I've been on the board, which I think this is a very valuable asset that is strategic for the district to hold on to. While today we have no specific need for this property, you never know what's going to come down the road. And so down the road, we may have a need for this property, or perhaps the city of Broadview Heights has a need for it and they want to have a discussion with us about kind of trading the property for something else. So I think it makes a lot of sense to just retain this as a strategic asset. And worst case scenario, it's basically like an emergency fund. Should the district end up in financially tight times down the road and a boiler goes and you need $1 million, you could take this asset and sell it if the district was in that type of a situation. So my view on this is the district should stay the course and retain the property. The floor is now open for other board members' thoughts.
I just want to say I'm glad that this is on the agenda and that we received so much more information about the property. Because I know before tonight, I really was kind of unaware what it was zoned, what the actual valuation of it was, to see it laid out and how that valuation has increased throughout the years. And then to know that it is zoned for single family residential, like that also will, continue to grow its value. I do have to say that I agree with Mark. I mean, it is an asset that has continued to increase in value, will most likely continue to increase in value, fingers crossed. But seeing as we don't have an immediate need, I would not want to look at divesting us of this yet. We have, obviously we have a plan. We have our plan for years out for needs that we may have for permanent improvement. And this would be something to me that the district should consider when we come up with things that we want to look to do down the road. That's my 2 cents.
Correct. While the conversation continues, can you pull up the picture of the property? That way everybody can kind of see while we hear from other board members.
Can I ask a question about the zoning while you're doing that, Craig? So it's zoned for single family residential. So does that mean we wouldn't be able to use it for, like, if we wanted to build a school facility, not a school, obviously, but a facility for, let's say we want to build like a storage facility on it, or like Mark said, like a drone field, right? Like, if it's only zoned for housing, is that useful to us? Or we'd have to have the zoning changed, right?
Correct. I mean, if we want to do something other than the resident housing, we would. It would have to be a conversation with the city and the zoning board to see if we could seek approval, but that would be yet to be determined.
Sorry, Craig. Yeah, there's another one. Nope, not that one.
Nope, not this
No,
one.
no. If you go back,
Is it this
it says PICS. That's the one,
Oh, yeah.
the bottom one. Yeah, sorry. It gives you kind of a sky view of the property. So you can kind of see what we're talking about. So there is some frontage on Wallings Road and frontage on is that Old Mill?
Yes.
West Mill.
That picture is actually south is up high and north, right? It's kind of.
It's running along 77. If just at the bottom of that photo would be 77, just below where his cursor is there. So it's the west side. And it would have frontage both on what is considered West Mill, I believe. That's West Mill, once you
Right,
go over
West Mill.
77. And then Wallings as well. So, I mean, as far as being an asset and being desirable for development at some point, I think because of that alone would help that. I'm no expert in it at all, but it is a sizable portion of property in Broadview Heights.
I personally just feel that economically, at this point in time, 2025, I'm not happy with our, not the district, but I mean our general financial situation politically in the state or anything. I think this would be a move that would be ill-conceived at this time. I think, you know, if it's this valuable, then it's going to hopefully, when things become a little more stable, continue to hold its value. If and when we would need it, depending on what the legislature does in Columbus.
Right. And obviously we're paying attention to that too, because legislators, you know, they're starting to formulate plans of what we need to do with buildings when they're not at 60% capacity, or like Hilton was sitting empty for some time. If certain legislation was passed, we would have a tough time disposing of some of those assets without having to offer it to private and or charter schools. So those things are always in the works that we need to keep our pulse on. It is an we can look at this as an investment. I don't know many of our investments that are returning at 26%, but sometimes, but you know, it's been a fair return, a very fair return on this piece of property.
With zero carry costs, so.
Right, except for a down
Yeah.
tree every once in a while that we had to go and remove from somebody's yard, I think is the only maintenance we've had to do of recent time.
Well, and I would like, can you clarify? There's a couple different things that can be done with this property. It can be traded, it can be sold, but the district is limited in what it can do with the proceeds.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's not like if the property is sold for the $800 and some $1,000 those proceeds could be used to hire teachers.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. So just putting that out there, it's
That would be PI.
Mhm.
right.
That would have to go.
Right. It can't be used for operating or general fund. It would go into into a PI fund. So it can only be used for PI needs.
Right.
Well, I'm just, even though it doesn't matter at this point, since Mark and Tish and Ava aren't interested, I feel like holding the property also has risks. It's not guaranteed that the property is going to continue to appreciate, and selling or trading this property, I mean, that's not something that's going to happen quickly. I mean, that's something that you need to plan in advance. So holding on to it for emergencies, I feel like a little bit short-sighted, because it's not like, you know, if there is some emergency with the boiler, that all of a sudden we're going to be able to sell this property and use the proceeds to fix a boiler. And I mean, we know that there are plenty of other needs in the district, plenty of other facility needs. I think we should take advantage of the appreciation that has occurred with that property. I just don't see holding on to it. I mean, our kids could benefit from those proceeds now instead of in 10 years. But anyway, that's my position.
And I agree. I think our kids could benefit from funding from the state and funding from, you know, the people that have promised to fund the schools. So I don't disagree, Ellen. Like, I do see your point. The one thing that and why I'm so proud to be part of this board is that we're very proactive and we plan things out, and our PI funds are planned out. We know we're planning for things that we need to do. I just can't, if there's an asset that we can continue to hold on to and still grow. And I hear what you're saying, that who knows if, you know, that'll be there, but, and there is some risk in that, but why would we sell it yet when we don't really have a plan for it? Knowing all the work that's been done by the community and our superintendent, and going into kind of this campus master plan. And we haven't even explored, you know, all our avenues for that. This could come into play down the road for those things. That's just how I see it.
And when asked about it, you know, from different board members, which is my opinion, I agree that I think as we go down the road of the campus master plan, and if we get to a point that there's a piece of the campus master plan that we would really like to enhance that, and this could help fund that, I think at that time we'd have that conversation about, do we swap this out? Would we sell it to invest into our campus here? I just think we're really early in that campus master plan conversation to really hone in on that yet. And again, I mean, the campus master plan conversation is just a dream at this point and has been, and it's just hard to get excited about at the moment because we're waiting for the state budget to drop. And then once hopefully we get the state budget to drop, we get some clarity on our financial future, then we can continue those conversations. But again, we're trying to be proactive, plan for those things. The permanent improvement list that we're slowly picking away at, there are some needs, and there's some needs that aren't on that list yet that we've even had during the budget season here, that our next permanent improvement opportunity will have to have a conversation about how we plan for some of that as the high school ages to 25 years now. And yes, boilers are going and things like that, but we also need to talk about classroom furniture, you know, and things that you get when the school is new, and then you have to figure, you know, a replacement cycle on. So I think it's wise to hang on to it at the moment, but also keep it at the forefront. Because before the last meeting, we haven't really talked about this property since I've been here. And we have new board members that probably had limited information or understanding of what it is and where it is.
You said, did you?
Yeah, I'm fine to hold on this, I guess. Yeah, I agree with Ellen. There is a risk. It could, you know, go either way. I know it's gone up in value, but, you know, crazier things have happened before. And I guess the idea that it's not zoned for something that would be useful for us. So that would be a whole nother process if we wanted to use it. And then I do think about if we're going to go to the community and ask them for money, but we have this asset that, you know, I'm really glad we got all this information. This is really valuable to have for all of us. And that I think it's just something we should watch, you know, into coming years. Like you said, Jeff, if we need money for parts of the campus master plan or whatever, you know, it's good that we have this information and we can act on it if we need to.
Very sensitive too to the neighborhood around it and the neighbors around it who are used to having a vacant 26 acres, and then we're making a change. I wasn't here when the elementary school went in, but I do know there's considerable angst as well when things are changing. I've experienced what a driveway will do and a couple of streetlights. It's been very good and productive, great opportunity to make friends, but at the same time, we have to be a little bit aware of the impact to the surrounding neighborhood, who we need their support as well.
And just two more comments. The idea that we don't have a need for it right now, I always hark back to Wallings Road School, which if you've been in the community long enough, you know, that was sold because we didn't need it. And then 10 years later, we needed to build a new school. So that's the whole thing. It's like when you look today, do we need it? And you can say, well, no, we don't need it, but you just never know what need you might have down the road. And while the property may not be big enough for a full-blown school building, it could be big enough for something else. I talked about this before. Maybe it's a drone park because we have a drone program. I mean, who knows what the property needs the district might have down the road. And the only other comment I wanted to throw on is the comment about risk. And while certainly it's real estate, there is some risk. I mean, historically, 2008, 2009, the Great Recession is the only time we've really seen property values in this community go down. And that was temporary because then it came right back up. So long term, I think it's a pretty safe place to have an asset is real estate in this community. I mean, you have Valor Acres coming online, Sherwin-Williams coming online. Nothing in this community says we're looking for a prolonged decline in property values that will be permanent. So I just think it's a good bet to just hold on to it and see what unfolds. Okay, I think we've heard from everybody. Everybody is. I think we're going to stay the course. Does anybody else have any comments or questions on the topic? Okay. We're going to move on to item 5, Treasurer's Communications. I'm going to turn it over to Craig.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll be quick. This is just the monthly update because the main event is a little later. We have our update through the month of April, which is what this report will show. As we compare our revenues from last April to this April, you can see that there was a reduction in state funding, as well as modest year-over-year decrease in other revenue categories. But in general, overall, as we look at the full fiscal year to date period, we have done actually pretty well. The difference in this is mostly due to property taxes that are there. When we look at our expenditure trends, these are how we spend our money, how we spend our dollars. So we have personal services, retirement and insurance, so benefits, purchase services, supplies and materials, capital outlay, and other objects. So our expenditures through April are tracking favorably at 81.5% versus like an 83% as we would look at that of the annual forecast, with projected expenditures to be $400,000 less than what we originally anticipated. Salaries and benefits are still higher, of course. When we look at our cash balance trends, we see that green and orange are last year. So green is last year's revenue and blue is this year's revenue. That's from July to current. So we're very, very close. And right now, the big difference there, as I've talked about before, is a decrease in property taxes. Some of that, again, we think is due to timing. It did not make the cut or the deadline. We are hoping we will get that money from delinquent tax payments is what I'm referring to from both residential and commercial. And we are hoping we'll get that in the second half of the calendar year, but it'll be into next fiscal year. When we look at expenditures, orange is last year's expenditures during the same time frame from July to current, and then purple is this year's. So again, we can see we have spent more money this year in the same time period than we did from last year. We have strong positive cash flows. Our year-end projections are working as we predicted. We'll see more about that later when we talk about the forecast. January, when we talk about the pressure of January, that was our highest negative monthly flow. That was due for 2 reasons. One was because it was a 3-pay month, which that will be going away soon. After our new contract negotiations, we'll be moving to a semi-monthly 24 pays per year in 26-27. So we will no longer see the 3 pays after next fiscal year. And then we also paid out that severance payment of over $550,000 in January, which is why January was a really, really high personnel cost that we had associated for that specific month.
So personnel costs are included within personal services costs?
Yes,
Okay.
it's like the same thing. Sorry, it's what they personnel and personal services are the same thing. Okay, so we still have a balanced financial position. We have stable revenue, expenditure management. Again, we've done well compared to the forecast, and we do have liquidity at the moment. So again, this is where we look at the actual monthly spend that we have. Let me move over here. So we can see the actuals for the month of April. We brought in $600,000, but we spent $4.2 million. And you can see that is the salaries and benefits line here of over $2.6 million in salaries, $1.1 million in benefits and retirement services. It does project here that we would still be deficit spending of about $600,000. And then let me zoom back out. And this is the same information that was presented. We'll go in for a deep dive afterwards. Any questions for where we are at the month of April? Okay. That's all I have there. And then what is listed here is the cash position annual spending plan. So you can obviously take a look and see where we are in terms of our cash position at the end of April, as well as spending plan by line item. So
You're not going to read it to us.
I'm not going to read it to you. That's for the check register later, where my friends will be staying. Right? Now they're hiding.
They don't have to say.
I thought I was your favorite. That's all.
All right, we're going to move on to item 6, community communications, hearing of the public. Is there anybody who wants to be heard? No? Okay, very good. Then I will dispense with reading that, and we'll move on to item 7, consent agenda. Item A, resolve to approve certified personnel recommendations. Item B, resolve to approve classified personnel recommendations. Item C, resolve to approve supplemental personnel recommendations. Item D, resolve to approve the check register and bank reconciliation for April 2025 as attached. Item E, resolve to approve the minutes from the April 14th, 2025 special board meeting and April 16th, 2025 regular board meeting as attached. Item F, resolve to approve superintendent's consent items A through E. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All
right.
Jeff and Craig.
Perfect. Well, this is what we all came here tonight for. So we're going to start out with our certified staffing. So as you see on the agenda, we have quite a bit. It's that time of the year. You know, we're not only hiring new employees, which I believe it's 11 or so are on this agenda, brand new employees, but we also have our current employees who are getting new contracts in their contractual sequence that is by Ohio Revised Code. We do have 2 retirements on here that I want to make sure that we make note of. Those 2 retirements are Don Ferrante, who is a high school math teacher and also one of our track coaches with 32 years of service, and Todd Waisel, who is a 4th grade teacher at the elementary school with 27 years of service. So thanks to both of these individuals for the many years of service they've given our community and more importantly, our students. We will be sad to see them go, but wish them the best in retirement. And then we also have on here, we have extended days, which is common this time of year for our speech pathologists, our school guidance counselors, or school counselors for next year. And so that's on there. But if you go further down, you're going to start seeing, nope, that's it. That for the end of that one. So I'll stop with that. But with that, I do have our building principals here this evening because I'd like them just to speak a little bit about the hiring season that we're going through. We're not done. We're close, but we are extremely excited about the applicants that we have had, and then those individuals who have made it to this point, looking for formal approval tonight. I've told you many of times when we go through these interview processes, I say to myself, I'm glad I'm not interviewing for a teaching job. And I don't know if I get one with the candidates that we see come through this district. So we have been blessed with just outstanding candidates. I've enjoyed getting to know most, if not all of them throughout the process. And it is a strenuous process. So I ask each one as they go through it, what did you think? And I feel for our math teachers at the high school, because when they came for their teaching interview where they taught a class of students, they had no idea who the students were. And not only did they teach a period, but they got a block period. So they got 60 minutes of special math instruction instead of 42 or 43. So with that, Mr. Jacob, if you don't mind kicking us off and introducing the new hire or hires that may be with us this evening and just talk a little bit about that.
Sure, I'm really glad to see Mr. Batten's going, oh my gosh, back there with that process. So we do it a little different at the high school. I am super excited to be welcoming 2 new staff members to our staff at current. We're still in the process of finalizing our 3rd for PE. But as Mr. Harrison alluded to, we definitely have a very rigorous process at the high school. We have a 3-round process, 4-round process, if you include the screening of all the applications, which is hard to get through that process as well. But we have an initial interview that is usually conducted with myself and our math department chair or the department chair of the department we're hiring for, and one of our assistant principals. And from there, we weed it down to as many candidates as we feel comfortable moving forward into a secondary round, which is a teaching audition that Mr. Harrison kind of outlined. And, you know, we figure the best way to do it is to put them in front of a live studio audience and to see how they respond, because you know, at this stage and at this point, so many of these people coming out know their content, but what we have to be able to make sure is that they know kids, and most importantly, that they can engage and relate to students. And I am thrilled to say that the 2 candidates that we're moving forward for our math position, we had a secondary math opened up because Mr. Lentz, who we hired last year, is going to be transitioning to the business department, which we did not get a lot of good applications for. And he is an accountant by trade. He graduated from Ohio State as an accountant and worked as an accountant. So we figured what better person to be able to carry on those curriculums. He was gracious enough to approach us and inquire about that. So we ended up making that decision. But we have 2 people that we're going to be hiring. One is Nathan Godsey, who is not with us this evening. He had a pre-scheduled vacation. Nathan stood out to us right away because he is not normal, and I mean that in a very good way. And when I say he's not normal, he was a collegiate wrestler at the age of 33 at the University of Ashland. He still had some eligibility left from when he was originally an undergrad that he didn't utilize. And while he was going to school to get his teaching endorsement, his teaching bachelor's degree, because he started off in the private sector in the business world, The wrestling coach approached him and asked if he would be willing to step in and do that. He was a father of 3 at the time. He was a full-time teacher at Mansfield High School teaching math as a long-term sub. And he was also a full-time student and working as the teacher. So not only was he wrestling collegiately at 32, he was a father of 3, coaching, wrestling, and also teaching full-time. So we also know that his wife is a saint. But, I mean, that's how important teaching and working with students was to him. He's coached multiple sports, recently serving as the head varsity wrestling coach for Crestview and Ashland, where he's qualified some kids for the state tournament. So he'll be able to come in and support our athletic department as well, and do some things outside of the classroom as well, which was something that was attractive to us. When I asked him, kind of after the resume with that, when I asked him, what happens when you're not good at something? What do you do? He says, I just work harder to get better at it. And I think that's the type of mentality that we're looking for in our staff. He's going to be somebody who gives it his all every single day for kids. We're excited to welcome Mr. Godsey. And then also joining us here this evening is Emily Zemko. She's from just a little bit north from Cuyahoga Heights, where she grew up, but she also had an alternative pathway to the classroom. She started off working in the IT industry. She is currently working for American Greetings in the IT. I'm sorry, Sherwin-Williams. They're moving in. We won't tell them. Sherwin-Williams in the IT department. And she decided that from the time being, she always wanted to be an educator, but was kind of discouraged from that pathway. And it just always drew her back. And so she actually explored getting her alternative education license, which she is in the process of already obtaining, and plans to move forward with obtaining a full-time license. And when we knew that Emily was our person, we asked her, so how did you get your field experience? How did you get this long-term sub job you had for a few weeks at Green High School a couple of weeks ago? She said, well, I used my vacation time. So she was using her paid vacation time to come into the classroom and be around kids. I mean, what better testament of giving up your vacation time to come to work for $99 a day or $120 a day? And at the end of our interview process, Ms. Reynolds, our math department chair, just said, when she talked about Emily, she was, I don't know what it actually is, but that girl has plenty of it. So she stood out to us from her ability to connect with kids, her enthusiasm and her excitement. And we're really excited to welcome Emily to the staff next year as well. And Emily's also expressed some interest in doing some coaching and some things like that, former high school athlete. So she's wanting to step up and help support some of our programs and extracurricular as well. So we're not only getting people who are going to positively impact us in the classroom, but those people that are going to impact our kids on the field and in their extracurriculars. So we're really excited to welcome both of them to the high school.
I think what's unique is we have 2 individuals too that have come from a non-traditional path to teaching that I think only build into the relationship that they will build with students and show students that not everybody's path is perfectly clear like we want them to be always. So it's awesome that we're able to bring new members like this. Mr. Rings, you want to go next?
Good evening. One thing Mr. Jacob forgot to say is like the number of applications we get.
Yes.
I got a phone call today. I got 3 phone calls today about some of our student teachers who have been working in our building either this year or last year, checking for references. And I was talking to the principals that were asking for references. So how many people did you get for that math opening? We had a pretty good year. We had 15. 15. We got hundreds. And so when you look at the number of applications that these folks have gone through, it's hundreds. In some cases, and some maybe only 30 or 40, but other schools are getting 5 to 10 people that are going into these positions looking for this job. So candidates who are here tonight, think about the numbers of candidates that we plucked out, if you will, because you can imagine it's a curse and a blessing to have 100 applications. You got to read every single one of them. You got to read all 100 and figure out which ones you want to bring in for an interview. And that's no doubt what we had with our 3 recommendations here tonight. I'm just going to go in order of how we hired them. First is Kaylee Pinton. She's here with her fiance, Nick. Kaylee's going to be an intervention specialist. She comes to us from Rocky River, where she was an interventionist. You'll have to ask her whatever that means. It's not an intervention specialist teacher. I don't know. I don't get into their politics, but it doesn't seem right. So we pulled her into our district. We're excited. I had a small experience with Kaylee early on. Did not know she was going to teach it. She actually played soccer with my youngest daughter. Had no idea. Kaylee played soccer at the University of Akron. So they played each other. That's probably the last time I saw Kaylee was on the soccer field playing against my daughter. So we welcome Kaylee in. We're excited for her, and she's got a busy summer. She's interested in coaching soccer eventually. But I think with the wedding and some other things going on this summer, she may just wait a year and get comfortable getting into this, into the crew, if you will, at the middle school. So we're excited to welcome Haley. Welcome. And good luck this summer. Secondly is, one of our student teachers. You talk about a job interview, right? Well, we're going to see you for 12 weeks. It's either going to be good or it's going to be really bad. And so this was really good. Our second intervention specialist is Ryan Poundstone, who's coming to us from the University of or Mount Union University, where he was on the football team in the national championship games a couple times, right? He's accompanied by his mom, who is also an intervention specialist at a different school district. So we know where he gets his love for teaching, obviously coming from mom and working with our most neediest kids. So we're excited to have him. He's also interested in, I think he's already picking up the coaching and helping out with our coaching at the 9th grade level, I believe, next year. Right? So we welcome Ryan for that and for enduring us during our spring semester. And he is still here working with us as a sub every day. So he gets to see the grind of the end of the year as well. And then third, and certainly not last, is a former BBH alumni. Courtney Samuelson is with her husband, Matt. Courtney was a 2012, 13 graduate. It was Courtney Ellis back then. I remarked today that she was looking at our board and said, "Oh my God, Mrs. O'Mara was my principal." So, and that makes me as her principal as well, because I was at high school when Courtney came through the district as well. So yes, we're getting the data. But Courtney comes to us through a couple different districts. Her most recent one has been Amherst, where she is teaching 7th grade science. She'll be taking over for 8th grade science next year for one of our teachers who's leaving, obviously. We're excited to have her, on all three of these candidates. And you can't say it out loud. You can't say it to the teammates. And I'm like, okay, these are the people that I'm interested in right away. After the first interview, you knew it. You knew it when we saw them teach. Again, Ryan, I saw him teach, I don't know how many times this year, and maybe the little snippets, but yeah, we were in there looking. I know Miss Spangler was there, Mr. Haynes was in there. So he had the toughest road to go because we saw him every day. Good and bad days, we saw him every day, no matter what was going on with the kids, and they maintained that. And Courtney's no doubt, she brings in energy and excitement because she's been teaching for a little bit, 7 years so far. She was at Amherst, and before that, she was at Olmsted Falls teaching science as well. And both of their administrators in both districts are calling me saying, "Please don't take her. Please send her to Olmsted Falls. Please don't." We're really lucky, but we know she wants to come home and teach here. So we're excited to have all three of them, and welcome to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Colleen, you next up, or Tina, or I'm sorry, yeah, these are going to go in order. Yep.
Mr. Mayard apologizes for not being here tonight. He's cheering on Lindsay. They had 4x800 won, so they're going to finals Friday. Have yet to get the next update.
His daughter runs for Strongsville. Yep.
We're both excited about the new additions to the intermediate school. I apologize, we have 5, so it'll be a little longer than the others talking. Julia Dorn will be joining us as a 4th grade teacher. We were very fortunate. She filled a long-term position all year, and we're delighted on how well she did this year. She has 2 very strong attributes that are going to contribute to our team. She's a team player and has a calmness and very approachable. The other attribute that you'll notice right about her is she loves to learn, and she wants to learn and get better at her craft. Another opening, which is joining our 4th grade team also, is Lainey Bachman. She's stepping into that role. She brings a wealth of experience from Monroe local schools. When calling her references, they simply said, "We're going to hate to lose her. She has been wonderful. She's a great team person. She is a strong leader and puts her colleagues and students first." Amelia Timko is filling another 4th grade teaching vacancy. Our 4th grade team is great. She's brand new from Marietta College. We were wowed by her knowledge in science and reading. She is presented at the state level on the topic and is heading to another conference in 2 weeks to do the same. On top of that, she was the captain of the Marietta softball team. When talking to her references, they simply said, "She's special. You better get her fast before she goes somewhere else." Lauren Austinson will be serving as an intermediate school intervention specialist. She's not here tonight because she's moving from Chicago and is coming to establish her roots here at BBH. She has a wealth of knowledge that is going to help our special education team and students. The reference spoke so highly of her, described her as one of the best intervention specialists they've ever had, and she won't be replaced. And lastly, we have Caroline Levino. She rounds out our new additions. She's also an intervention specialist. She comes to us from Milford Exempted Village School in the Cincinnati area. She wants to establish this area as her home again. Caroline has experience that is going to instantly contribute to the special education team. When talking to her principal, he was excited for her to go back home, but also sad she was going to lose a valuable staff. We look forward to our news.
And Milford is not going to be sending us any Christmas cards because 2 of our new hires are coming from Milford Exempted School District. Yeah, so I don't think we'll get a Christmas card. So thank you, Tina. I appreciate. Sorry I missed you back there. Colleen. Colleen has a special guest with her this evening.
Elena is principal of the day, and we thought, what better way than to start with a board meeting? I'm principal of the day till tomorrow. I said, it's 24 hours from 6 to 6. This is really one of the most important jobs as a principal, Elena. So I wanted to make sure she experienced it. Meeting our newest staff members, going through that process. I don't need to repeat it. It's extensive. But we are extremely excited about the new hires at the primary level. We have 2 of them with us today. Our kindergarten hire is Megan McEwen, that's brought with her family. They had the longest interview, both of these 2 hires. Megan stepped in at the very last minute for another kindergarten teacher who went on. She has been there since December, filling her shoes, and she did it seamlessly. Wouldn't have even known from one day to the next that it was a good teacher. She picked up right where the teacher left off, and it has been an amazing rest of the year with Megan. So we are delighted to have Megan with us next year as a kindergarten. So welcome. And then we also have, this would be the longest, she had a whole year interview. Isabella Robotny was a long-term sub this year in 1st grade. She impressed us so much that we are keeping her on. Again, one of the things about Isabella is she's one of those people that can form a relationship the minute she walks in the room with someone. I was telling the story today about if she can hold up her nails. Her students designed each of those nail arts on there, and she went to her nail salon and asked them to do this because at recess the kids came up with her nails, and something just so simple but a connection that she makes with her students is so extremely important. So congratulations to both Megan and Isabella. We're so excited to have you.
It's amazing the lengths will go during indoor recess to keep kids occupied, right? I mean, at least it's just nails and not tattoos or anything like that. All right, very good.
A few extras that she gave me so that when I went to my nail appointment the next week, and she said, "Here, take these." And I was like, "I don't know if I can do kitty cats," and like there was a lot. But welcome. And so Principal Kuzer here has some advice for our new hires. She has prepared. Part of it's being prepared for a presentation, right? She said she's ready.
Hi everybody, I'm Elena, and I really like when teachers are kind and they're funny, and like when they help students that are like needing help. And it's very important to introduce yourself when it's like the beginning of the year. Go Bees, that's it.
Good job.
Who knows, maybe one day that'll be one of our new hires. Even Todd can tell us how that goes, right? But all joking aside, I want to thank the administrative teams at the buildings. They've talked about the processes. The interviewing process is one of the most important things we do as a school district. It's one of the largest investments we make as a school district as well. So it's a lot of time and energy and effort and emotion that goes into it during an extremely busy part of the year anyway. So on top of finishing this year, planning for next year, hiring in between. It's been a lot of long hours, long interviews for the administrative teams. But what's so refreshing too is the administrators in each one of our buildings involve a great number of staff members. And those staff members have a say and who we are going to allow to join the family here at Brecksville Broadview Heights. And Dr. Martin and his team, they contribute along the way. So it is a very rigorous process, but it produces results and continues to produce results. And with your approval tonight, these individuals will join the ranks. And we have a few more that'll be coming next month because we're still in the process of filling a couple positions. Not that people are running from our district. We've had people who have been here for a very long time that have reached the golden age of retirement, and we wish them nothing but the best. So we're excited about this. So that is the certified side. The classified side, as we look at those recommendations on the agenda tonight, we have quite a few recommendations for contracts. Again, timing, part of the year. On here as well, we have some beekeepers and some summer help on here, custodial help that we always need. And then we have a lot of ESY assistants, extended school year. Mrs. Spangler and her team have done an outstanding job of preparing and getting ready for ESY this summer. It's no small feat, but they've done a great job assembling the team that will take care of our students this summer. And we do have quite a few retirements on the classified side. You will see some special ed assistants. We have 4 bus drivers. That sends chills down my spine because we know how hard it is to find bus drivers. But Fonzie and his team at transportation with Mr. Wyckoff have done a great job in finding replacements for these drivers. So we're in a good spot heading into summer, but we do value these individuals who are deciding it's time for retirement and wish them the best in their retirement years. Okay.
It like never ends.
There we go. The other item that's on this consent agenda is supplementals. We only have 3 on there this evening: flag line advisor, head football coach, head boys soccer coach.
2 documents.
Oh yeah, correct. So on the first one being the classified side or certified side, those 3 individuals on here. Next month, we will see quite a few or the remaining fall coaches. If you remember, probably it was about last year this time, we approved the coaches tool chest, which brought all their certifications into one product, which then they all expire at the same time, which is June 30th. So they're all right now going through getting their renewal stuff done. So that will be coming at our June 25th meeting. You'll see a long list of fall coaches. And
So this is for 24-25.
yep, and then one for 24-25. A lot of times things are delayed with background checks and or different coaching certifications. And then the check registrar.
April 1st. Check number. The bank reconciliation and check register are here for, hopefully you've had a chance to review that already. But if anyone's really bored, you can see every dollar that we spend in the district every single month. And then we have just 2. We have the special board meeting on April 14th and the regular board meeting on April 16th. And that is all I have for you.
Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski,
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Why don't we take a short break and welcome our new employees and new members of our family. And then for anybody, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but anybody doesn't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, this would be a good time to exit. But you've got to see the forecast. Yes.
Congratulations, our new hires. Good night.
Okay,
All right, we're
we're
good.
back and ready to go.
Okay, well, the room just about emptied, which is such a shame because on our next agenda item, we are going to work the alphabet. We hit all the way to.
We got all the way to Z.
This is unprecedented.
Yep.
And
It
I
really
can't
is.
believe people left.
We've been
early.
teasing about
It's like
that for the past
leaving
couple months.
before your team has a historic comeback and wins the game, and then you're in the parking lot going, I can't believe I left that game.
Yep.
All right,
Never admit to it.
with that, we're gonna go on to item 8, superintendent's recommendation. Item A, resolve to approve the Brexville Robbie Heights High School graduating class of 2025 pending final verification of all state and local graduating requirements. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
So all 305 graduates that went across the stage on Saturday. So it is here for official approval. This will be the official record of who graduated from Brexville Robbie Heights High School this year.
Great. Any comments or questions?
It was a wonderful
I agree.
ceremony again on Saturday.
Yep.
Fantastic. Congratulations to the class of 2025.
Smooth as silk.
Like clockwork.
There's a lot of work behind the scenes that
Yep.
people don't truly appreciate. Mr. Jacob and his team at the high school does a great job. Dr. Martin, who's out there, thank you for stepping in and my pinch hitting for me. So what a great, I've heard nothing but positive feedback from community members I've seen this week.
I can't believe you got Dr. Martin to talk for like a minute and a half.
We went over it a few times. And I think Mr. Jacob was gonna hit the button and cut the mic if he went any longer.
All right, roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic? Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Ms. Spikowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item C, resolve to approve the memorandum of understanding between BBHCSD, BOE, and the BBH Education Association as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
This is a pretty quick MOU, when STRS moved the years down to 32. A few more individuals qualified for retirement, and they didn't have the opportunity to hit the deadline that we had negotiated to get paid through the summer and benefits. So we only thought it was right to be able to allow these individuals to have that same opportunity. So that's what this MOU is about. Stretch pay and benefits for the summer, those retirees.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Ms. Spikowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item E, resolve to approve the Ohio Paving and Construction Agreement as attached for the total of $251,352.60. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
This is going to be work done this summer over at the transportation and maintenance facility, where our buses park. It is a little bit more hefty of a job compared to their traditional asphalt and concrete work that's done, as well as at the middle school drive that is in dire need of some serious potholes to be filled and corrected. That was one of the projects we pushed from last year to this year, waiting to see where the campus master plan would kind of land. And because we didn't want to pave something that may be torn up. So we're good to go and have that work done this summer. And the bids came in at a good clip.
Comments or questions?
Which I just wanted the information or the documents that is on here now is for the drive from Mill into the middle school.
Correct.
But we've been talking about, there have been a couple of other references at the meeting to a planned drive that's gonna go from the high school down to
Hilton.
this part to Hilton.
Yep.
Yeah. So
This is
two
the existing
separate
drive.
things.
If this is asphalt for an existing drive.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Spikowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item G, do we need to vote on this? I thought a final read, final read we do, just not the first one. Okay. Item G, resolve to adopt revised board policy 0131, final reading. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Just to refresh your memory, this has to do with resolutions that we pass on emergency basis, that they would continue on and not have to be redone at the next regular meeting. It had to do with some policy we needed to pass to be in line with new legislation. So this is a technical correction that we've made to our policy.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Spikowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item I, resolve to approve the 2025-2026 SR Trans School Transportation Agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So letters I and K and M, O, as we work down through here, are a lot of agreements for next year for students with special needs, either transportation agreements and or outplacements. And these are just continuing placements that are currently in place now or next school year.
Any comments or questions?
I
Roll.
believe some of these we approved just even a few months ago for, yeah, short time.
For this year.
Yeah.
To finish the year. That transportation being one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Bykowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item K, resolve to approve the 2025-2026 ESC PEP agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Same here, just continued tuition for 2 students.
Comments or questions?
Clarification, this is an ESC PEP agreement or,
Feel free to step to the mic, Mrs. Spangler.
How does the placement through there, that's separate part of it, normally with their association with the ESC, but PEP is the
provider,
provider for them.
but we go through the ESC for them now.
No, we pay, it goes through PEP.
Okay.
So you're asking why the ESC reference?
Yeah.
Because the contract has Educational Service Center Northeast Ohio.
Yeah.
So it's a contract that goes through through them, yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That was my only question.
I'm gonna go on a limb without looking here, but I think they help negotiate rates for the members of the ESC. And the contract is also signed by the ESC superintendent and treasurer. So I think that's.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bykowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item M, resolve to approve the Cleveland Hearing and Speech Agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's the continuing agreement for 25 through 27.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Bykowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item O, resolve to approve the 2025-2026 Total Education Solutions Agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
This is a continued outplacement for 1 student.
Comments or questions?
What does Total Education Solutions do?
It is an outplace facility, so typically students that have higher needs, so especially they specialize in the areas of like autism with communication and behavior. So typically students that have more behavior needs that where they need intensive support with like professionals that are a little more extensive than what we offer here is that area. And this was another one that we approved at the a couple months ago that a placement was there, and now it's just a continuing for that year.
Yeah. They're located in Fairlawn.
Other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Bykowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item Q, resolve to approve the Cleveland State University Psychology Internship Agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The Q, S, and U are agreements with universities for both psychology interns as well as student teachers. A great opportunity for us to test run or interview for an extended period of time individuals that will be entering the workforce and also help us within the district as well.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
Yes.
Mrs. Bykowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item S, resolve to approve the Kent State University Psychology Internship Agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, second.
Comments or questions?
She was
Roll call.
testing the other board members. Mrs. Gaelick,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Item U, resolve to approve the Mount Union Teacher Education Cooperation Agreement as attached. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions?
But you know, what, now I do have a question about the school psychology internship. How does that, I know like a teacher internship works, but how does the school psychologist internship work?
It is throughout that year time. Now they do have, there's like and Craig can kind of even help me a little more, even work with the ESC, but there is a sub of different like funds that they can get that the state is able to provide that goes through the ESC that they're able to get, that they are with us within that time. Typically, we start off with making sure that they understand like our processes and what that compliance part looks like. Then we also give them the field experience of knowing how they're working to assess students, but it's always side by side with our current licensed psychologists. So Hannah Pickens and Holly Powers are going to be the two interns. And they sat through and went through interview. We also make sure they go through like an interview and stuff with us. And Joe D'Alessandro as well as Kate Dixon are going to be like the mentors, and Shelly Bohr is also going to be while Kate is on leave with us. But it's a great opportunity to get that field experience, and we also enjoy it because we have opportunity to learn from them, especially as like new technology and new testing of how different ways to do the assessments is always great. So even some of our newer school psychs that are like, hey, isn't there a way we can do this a little more online? And it helps us go through some of the assessments to give feedback that we love to get from their experience too.
Mrs. Spangler, is their primary responsibility starting out to complete assessment to determine eligibility for special education services? Do they do 504 work as interns? Just curious.
They do a little bit of everything.
Okay.
I will say, starting off, understanding where they are. So wherever their mentor is, it's understanding that. And then we start to bridge them out so that way they have an opportunity to see all the different buildings. Because even as we know, like a preschool evaluation and what is a part of that special or our initials is way different than the process for a reeval. So I would say they primarily focus under like IDA with us. And then they will branch out to some of like the 504 suspicion meetings in those avenues. Even like gifted testing, for example, our school psych who is leaving us now, Alyssa, she was wonderful. And she also just got a job, I believe, in Brunswick, but having that opportunity for the gifted placement testing too is a great experience.
Other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Item W, resolve to approve the attached resolution declaring transportation impractical for the 2024-2025 school year. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
What's different this year than years past, these used to all come at the same time and there was deadlines to it, but it's kind of rolling now. So it's when families submit for it. This is one that we've had before, Classical Heritage, which is in Peninsula, which is under 30 minutes, but it's not practical for us to transport. So we do payment in lieu of to the family.
So what's the deadline for families to apply for this?
There isn't, Mr. Reichoff, correct now? That was one of the changes that has happened recently. I mean, this used to be a thing that we would do all at one time, but now it's whenever a family applies for it. I don't mean to make a judgment or guessment here. May have heard other families talking about getting their payment, thinking, what are you talking about? Who knows? And they were able to apply.
And then what's the amount of money that they're going to be getting?
$650. Now it's $596, I think, $593, about $600.
We're now coming to close for this. Could be possibly prorated, so some of them last see if they, then they're all here just now applied, or whether they moved in midyear for the year and so.
Yeah, we don't make payment until after the year's over to verify attendance for that purpose.
But then they do.
Yes.
And at one point in time, it was in the $200 range and now it's approaching 600. So.
So for community members that aren't aware, as a district, we're required to pay for the transportation of students in our district to attend private schools. So that's what we're discussing.
It's very unique and has been something that's been on our radar a little bit more since it did go from $200 roughly to almost 600. You know, and if it's under 30 minutes, then we're required to do it. If the trip is over 30 minutes, then we're not required. And just a quick story, I think it was St. Ignatius. We drove it for a long time. The district, number one, we didn't have extra bus drivers, okay? Because you have to drive the route at the same time that it would go. And they would leave from our middle school. So our bus driver did a test run one day, it was like 30 some minutes. Well, the family challenged it, which they have every right to. So an official from the state comes, gets on the bus, and they do the drive again during the same time. And wouldn't you know it, the day that the state official was on the bus, they got out of the middle school parking lot, not stopped at the light, got up to Mill and 77, didn't get stopped by the light, got right on 77 North and made it in 28 and a half minutes. So then now that they've challenged it and appealed it, they went, we cannot challenge it again. So that school in particular will always be one that we have to transport to or pay in lieu of. So you have two choices. You either transport them with our bus and driver or you pay in lieu of. Most of the time in lieu of is going to be cheaper than sending a bus with a driver and for a few handful of students. But yes, it is something that we're required to do by state law.
Other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer, Mrs. Spikowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara.
Yeah.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Item Y, resolve to approve the attached resolution, which establishes a program for the donation of personal property that is not needed for public use, is obsolete or unfit for the use for which it was acquired. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Just putting a process in place for us to dispose of some assets that are under a certain dollar amount to another organization, a 503C, like a booster group, or someone of that interest. This is putting a process in place for us to be able to do that when we have materials and or assets we'd like to dispose of.
Comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer.
Yeah.
Mrs. Spikowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara.
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. We made it to Z.
But
Moving.
next time we gotta get AA.
That's double A.
Well, allegedly, do we know?
Ah.
I don't know. We've never been in that territory before. We're going to move on to item 9. Item A, resolve to approve the updated 5-year forecast and associated notes and assumption as presented. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right,
Great,
Craig.
what we all are here for. So I'm gonna try to do it through the link because I think it might work better. Let's see. If not, I'll pull up the other thing. Cool. Okay, so again, this is just the update that we have. So we're still fiscal 25, which is the current fiscal year, through fiscal 29, as you will see throughout. And this is, again, just updating our assumptions to see where we are. And we will highlight some of those important topics as we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. Understanding the 5-year forecast. Again, this is understanding that it is just a planning tool. If you've seen the legislation, there's a recommendation that it would go from a 5-year forecast to a 3-year forecast, which some people don't think is a terrible idea. Some people think it is a terrible idea. I don't really know where I am, because the problem with the 5-year forecast and the way our funding model works in the state of Ohio is that in many cases, we are between 3 different budgetary processes that are between potentially multiple governors. And it makes it difficult to plan, but it at least does provide us right now with the 5-year financial planning tool. It is a compliance requirement that it is submitted twice a year by every single school district in the state of Ohio, public that is, November 30th and May 31st. Early warning system that does help the Auditor of State's Office and the Department of Education and Workforce to identify schools that are experiencing financial distress. There's also another tool that's been released by the Auditor of State's Office that are giving these financial health indicators of school districts. Those are, of course, positive for our school district as it is, but we'll probably tackle that topic at a different time. But it is a living document. And again, these projections are only with the information we have as of today, and it could change by tomorrow. So our revenue sources, as you know, it's about, here we're all mostly locally funded between our property taxes, our largest source, state funding, and all other revenues is kind of like our interest earnings and payment in lieu of taxes, which is for us, it is our TIF money. So those are the bulk of what we receive in revenues, and our expenditure categories are listed there for you. Personnel services, which is salaries, employee benefits, which is healthcare, as well as retirement and pension contributions. Purchase services, which is a wide variety of things, but we're basically contracting a service. Supplies and materials is 2.7%. Capital outlay is 0.1%. And other objects is 1.4%. So capital outlay, of course, ours is low because we spend most of our dollars in capital outlay from our permanent improvement fund. Again, this is, or I shouldn't say again, this is a forecast for just our general fund and not our other funds that we have within the district. All other objects is mostly our fees from our property, from the county auditor's office. Okay, there is our revenue comparison. So if we look, this is a comparison from where I projected in November and where I projected in May. And you can see, unless you're really, really close up there, it is actually pretty spot on. There aren't huge swings in terms of our total budget that we have. So we were projecting now $56.3 million, which is slightly lower than November, again, because a lot of that is given because of the reduction of property taxes collected, which we hope to get back in the second half of the calendar year. The other categories are pretty consistent. We did get a little bit less in state funding. And then on the other revenue side, I tend to project less in terms of the economy right now, especially in November when it comes to interest and investment earnings. Because if you recall, just a few months ago, they were projecting several rate cuts and those have been holding consistent. So because those have been holding consistent, our interest earnings have been very consistent. So that's where we're offset in terms of making additional money that we did not plan for back in November. Because at this point, I think we could have had 3 rate cuts, which we did not have. We look at our expenditure comparison from November to May, and you can see that the difference in personnel services is about $300,000. In benefits, it's about $100,000 decrease. So this is all the good news. 28,000 or 289,000, sorry, in purchase services from what we originally projected, and supplies and other is basically right now we're still projecting a 0 difference from where we were. So that's all good news on the expenditure front. So this is our cash balance comparison. So the bottom line, the darker line, is where the cash balance was projected back in November, and where the top line, the red line, is now where it is projected, which again, this all necessarily leads to good news. Part of that is that we are continuing to work with Baker Tilly. So I'm going to have them probably come in next month or the month after. We're looking for some real exciting topics to talk about the TIF. But they've been doing some work on our TIF. That we have TIFs, tax increment financing from the city of Brecksville, the Valor Acres property that we have in Sherwin-Williams, as well as in Broadview Heights with a couple properties. We now have much better projections as to what those are going to produce. And so I have updated that, which has helped us on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, as we've talked about with all these wonderful new hires we had this evening, is we had an unexpected amount of retirements this year. So while we have a very large severance payment again for next year at about $500,000, those new employees are coming in at a much lower cost, which is going to ultimately then, as we project out, especially when we look at fiscal 27, fiscal 28, fiscal 29, that is additionally why you now see some of those, that increase in cash balance is because of those retirements that we were not expecting. This is just a quick synopsis of where our cash balance projections are according to the current forecast. The concerning part is that still does seem like a lot of money, but at the very bottom, which I don't know why that does, I can't make that thing go away. I guess I'll move it up. Maybe that's better. Is that in fiscal 29, we would be projected to have $10.7 million, which would be 62 days of cash, which is highlighted for you at the bottom. And so we'll get into the levy conversation as a cycle would come, but it just shows that we would be outside of, with no levy scenario at all, we would be below our 90-day cash balance policy that we adopted a few years ago. Like now my button won't work. There we go. So those are just the key changes in valuation. We were projecting 20%. We ended up with 21.46. This is just, again, highlighting some of those changes of what we were projecting before all that information came out to us from that county reappraisal. Again, also highlighting that when we look at the reappraisal of property, we don't necessarily see an increase due to those reduction factors in terms of properties going up, but the school district is not necessarily getting additional money, with the exception of PUP values and inside millage.
Sorry, PUP values?
Personal utility. I think it's in one of the other unless it was in. No, it's in another slide. Emerging legislative challenges, as you can see here, the property tax reform. So there's a bunch of stuff going on right now. One of the other things I'll highlight too is just that there's a potential for a proposed constitutional amendment that there would be no property taxes. That is concerning for everyone. And as much as that would be nice, I'm sure none of us would like to pay property taxes. I guess the question is, where will that money come from? But there's also other bills and pieces of legislation that they're talking about for property tax reform that's concerning. I don't know what the state would do if that passes, to be quite honest. I hope people don't just kind of vote blindly without knowing if that makes it to the November ballot, because I really don't know what the mechanism will be to fund schools. But that's not just us; it's libraries, it's fire, it's EMS, it's all of those public services that would be affected by something that severe.
As Representative Davila told us, it's $22 billion.
Yeah, it's a third. I think it's a third of the general fund revenue is property taxes for this. Yeah, it's a lot. House Bill 96, we've talked about this a lot, but again, putting this cap of 30%. I did read an article today that the Senate is kind of saying that even if there is a cap, they don't believe that that is enough, which is good news. So again, if they're going to put a cap on it, it does not seem like the Senate is going to entertain the House's very restrictive policies that they are trying to pass, or that they've passed in their chamber. And again, the state budget uncertainty, we really don't know right now what's going to happen with fair school funding. We definitely don't think that's going to happen, but we don't know what the proposed model is going to be. So it makes it very difficult for treasurers and financial officers throughout the state to project what then is going to be our source of revenue, of how that's going to be affecting, because it is still 17% of our revenue source. So we will continue to monitor it. For the purpose of the forecast, we've kept them pretty baseline and conservative, so that we are not trying to project more than we would get on the revenue side, which is the more financially prudent thing to do. So again, current funding, uncertain future, don't know what's happening with the phase-in. We're using conservative projections. And again, we of course in our district is a wealthy district, considered a wealthy district. It is limited state share. So we are insulated to some extent, but again, we just don't know what's going to happen with all the different legislation that's out there and potentially constitutional amendments. So this is where the personal utility growth is listed as. So it's usually on the commercial side, it's public utility gets taxed, and it's 100%. So the property reappraisal is there, but again, it's limited by state reduction factors. That's House Bill 920. So we are getting close to that floor. I've talked about the 20 mil floor before. We're sitting at about 27 mils. So within a couple property appraisal cycles, we could potentially be affected by the 20 mil floor, provided there would be no other levy to then increase the mills that we have as voted to increase the effective millage. Personal utility typically does grow. So while that says it does not signify that we would get $3.4 million, it's saying that public utility would be growing at $3.4 million in assessed value. There are some limited increases that we receive from PUP values. The TIP agreement, again, is on here, which is expected to grow, which this year we received about $330,000, and now through fiscal 29, it's projected to bring in about $900,000 a year. And again, we'll talk more about that once we have Baker Tilly come in and give their presentation of what they've been continuing to monitor. Interest income decline, again, I'm still forecasting that it will go down at some point. So those numbers have been adjusted, but they are trying to stay conservative on what we would, I guess, bet on interest earnings and investment earnings that we have. Our expenditure trends are that obviously we are sitting at 62.8% of our operating budget is negotiated base increases that we have of 2.75% of this current fiscal year. Next year is 2.85% and then 3.25% in 27 for certified staff. It's similar with classified employees. Their structure is a little bit different than ours, but it's one of the largest things that we do. Healthcare inflation, we are still projecting between 10 and 11% of annual premium increases. The good news is we've talked a little bit about the Suburban Healthcare Consortium. It seems to be on the rebound, which is good. Things have very much stabilized in our switch to using Anthem versus Medical Mutual. So that is starting to stabilize. However, I don't project that we would be getting a single digit increase, at least in the next year or two, so that we can recover. Facility operations continue to have costs rising with inflation. And of course, educational services, sorry, Mrs. Spangler. but the special education services that we do provide and other programs are expensive when we do have to do outplacements. So those are on the rise as well. Total salaries and benefits makes up 86% of our budget. So it does talk a lot about, how much we have to spend to go around other places. So as we look at future planning and levy considerations, we currently should have about a $25.8 million ending cash balance, which is 165 days. It has a declining cash balance through fiscal 26 and 27. Our window is still somewhere between 26, 27 in terms of when, and now let's talk about like when you pass a levy, it obviously collects later. So I'm saying that planning window is somewhere probably in fiscal 27 for the board to make a final determination. What is presented in the forecast in the numbers is a 27 passage and a 28 collection, and it is projected at a 4.5 mils for modeling purposes is what has been presented. If we do nothing, that critical point, if you see in fiscal 29, would put us below 90 days of cash. So there's a bunch of different options that can eventually work out. And those are the conversations we'll need to have based on the economic conditions that we find ourselves in. But that window of planning is approaching our district with deficit spending that we are currently seeing. And then last but not least, the forecast will be published through the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, as well as on our website and through board docs. If people do in the community have questions, they can feel free to reach out to me. But I will take any questions from the board as well, if you have any.
You spoke of teachers that have opted to retire and severance payments. Could you speak a little bit more about what that involves? Is that payout of sick days? Is that pretty much what that is? Because we did not do an incentive this year.
Correct. This year we did not do an incentive. So what's interesting about my educational colleagues that do a great job in this hiring process. No, they do a great job in the hiring process, but what always happens is that everyone thinks that savings happens right away. And that's the problem. So we were expected to see those savings after this year to start to next year. But what's happening is that we are not going to see those savings as much. They're still there. It's just that everything starts getting delayed because those large severance payments basically are a wash with what we save. So it's the following year that you see it. Now we've had two very large classes of teachers that have retired. You look at last year and this year, you're sitting at what, 27, 28 teachers. So they're two large classes. So we will see the savings. They're projected in there. It's just that you don't necessarily see it right away. So last year we had about $500,000 in incentive. And then we also paid out about $550,000 in the actual severance payments, which is a negotiated agreement, which pays out a percentage of retiring sick leave balances. The certified contract is 28% with a maximum of 88 days. So some of those teachers are at the max, which that calculates out to about $50,000 per teacher if they're at the max of 88 days. So we have many of those that take place. But now this year, I think we're at 11, total maybe certified right now. So it's going to be another pretty big payment that would be going out the door. So again, those savings are in there. It's just that they're just not instant because that savings is being offset by the severance payment the following fiscal year. So then you don't really see it till the next year.
Commentary to that, I would say that is the back and forth that we have as superintendent and treasurer and the central office team when we're replacing individuals. Obviously, we're a district that has high expectations for growth and achievement for our students. So we're not always a district that is BA 0, which is bachelor's, no experience, but we have to balance. And there are now, the way the market is for teachers, there are certain subjects that are going to require years of service and education to have the quality of instruction that we want to have. So we do try to keep Craig in a good place and make sure that we balance hires and when we can, we will, but it's also, we don't want to lower our standard just to be cheaper in that area.
Yeah. So it's a good mix of what they've hired. So they do a good job.
I have a question. Can you go back one slide? Just because other people probably can wrap their heads more easily than I can, but like, since our fiscal year is not January 1 through December 31, like when you're talking about the 4.5 mil operating levy consideration, you say fiscal year 27, but like, is that, can you be more specific on what that means?
So it really just, that's like the window of where we're gonna have to figure out what we're doing. So we had originally talked prior, like in November, we were originally planning, and that forecast had planned for a levy that would take place sometime in 26, which would, the calendar year of 2026, which would collect in 27.
Okay, and is that
This-
still what you're saying?
This current forecast has moved that to 27, meaning it would collect, that the election would happen sometime in 27, either that's not a presidential year, so it'd be May or November. So it would happen in May or November, collection in 28.
Okay, so what specifically caused you to change that?
Just the
date?
difference in cash balance of where we are. I think that we're still taking also, we have to be careful because as we all understand, I think in the room, how the levy cycle works, but we still really don't know what that cap is going to be either. So if the Senate says, and they put a cap on, let's say it's 50%, we're sitting at 50% almost today. So if we would go out for a levy too early, it could cause it would generate all this chaos and it wouldn't make sense. So we really have to still wait until we figure out what this legislation's like at the end of June. And so we'll have a lot more to talk about in November, I think, for the next forecast. But I think it is important for all of us to be having this conversation, in the near future to figure out what the best time is and what's reasonable, and what makes the most sense, in addition to the conversations we've had about, campus master plan and whatnot. So there'll be conversations, I think, to come, is the key takeaway of trying to figure out what the best mix is.
I think July and August meetings will be meetings where we'll have some answers to some of that and be able to start planning and forecasting out. But, in a nutshell, it's good news that the levy cycle has been extended a little further according to the forecast.
Can you go back to the cash balance comparison slide? Yeah. So, I think that this kind of summarizes the good news of the forecast, which is the burn through our cash from November has now been adjusted to a slower burn. So you're talking about when you get to FY 29, $5.4 million more preserved in our cash balance, which changes the trajectory of when we might need an operating levy. So, when Craig talks about possibly FY 27, there's plenty of runway. You don't want to pull the trigger too early on when you think you're going to go out for a levy, because you see in 6 months, the picture all of a sudden gets brighter because you didn't end, we had retirements that we weren't expecting, or maybe we get more TIF money or whatever. So, and we still don't know what the state is going to do. State comes out with a budget, and then sometimes it helps us, sometimes it hurts us. And so, that's why we have to keep looking at this every 6 months with this forecast to see. But, you don't want to start too early on thinking, it's good to put it on the radar. But the good news of this forecast is the financials have improved that will, at least if, this is accurate or it comes to fruition, that, we'll be able to last longer without new money.
And we could be sitting here in November and be the exact opposite, right? Because many of our vendors are sending us notices now about tariffs and increased prices and all of that. So it's like we trying to get too excited or too discouraged, know that we're heading in a good path. We are approaching and will be deficit spending. We know this. So we know that there's a levy on the horizon at some point. We just haven't pinpointed that yet.
Right. Which all goes into the frustration too, when we do end up getting to that point of saying we need more operating money, is, voters like to say, well, how long is this going to last? And it's, that's a tough question because, look at this forecast, it changes in 6 months, and depending on what the state does, it could change dramatically.
But only being here 2 years, I could say that this district also has a very strong history of extending that levy cycle.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we have lots of conversations about, realizing that it's taxpayer dollars that we're dealing with, and trying to extend out, in this scenario, even the planning scenario, the district is looking at about 10 years of a levy cycle. That's good considering what we've been through, right? And that goes back to us, I think, spending our ESSER dollars wisely and how we chose to do some of those things, how we've utilized PI to take some of that that pressure off and still get some things accomplished. You know, and the bidding process that we go through for all those things has generated some savings as of late, and since we've come off of the COVID piece of this.
I just want to caution too, for people that are dialing into this conversation and when they look at the slide, you know, the 4.5 mil levy in FY 27, this is just a planning conversation. We are not, the board is not making any decisions about an operating levy. We're just saying, based on the forecast numbers today, if those were to hold steady, you'd probably be looking at a levy in FY 27, and it'd probably be in the 4.5 mil neighborhood. But as we know, every 6 months, a lot can happen. And so, you know, nothing is firm right now. This is just a planning conversation.
Can we go back to last month's meeting and add that caveat as well? That conversation about a bond issue and things was nothing more than a planning meeting?
Yes.
And situational, not that we were requesting to go on the ballot.
Sure.
That was not a request that was made.
Sure.
So I'll just point out, like, and that the reason why it's important though, as a planning tool, is if we look at the bottom of this is fiscal 25 right here where the cursor is, 26, 27, 28, and 29. This is what we're saying without a levy. So we put that planning tool piece in just to make a projection, and we can see at least where that are, if you look at this, it keeps the cash balance somewhat stable. It's not really even showing a large increase. So again, that's why we use it as a planning tool. And you can see that if that would be the case, you see our true days of cash goes from 165 to 154 to 129 to 121 to 125. It keeps it very much in our, like, where our cash balance policy is. If we do nothing, that's where it becomes a problem. But this is the part of keeping the board informed in terms of just to show what the projection is and what we're thinking about, at least from our perspective, and what might make sense, at least for now. But we'll continue to adjust this and look to see where we finish, what next year looks like. Because again, too, when I was doing most of this, a lot of those new hires were not even hired at that time. So we have placeholders for them. So we're going to get to the actuals here pretty soon once we get all those new contracts loaded for us.
Craig, do you have anywhere in here? I didn't think I saw it. I know we have like the days of cash, but do you have the percentage of the carryover balance that?
I don't have it in here. No, I can tell you where we are today is roughly, I mean, I can get that for you to show you.
We're at like 50%, right?
We're like at 49%.
Like what would we be in like fiscal year 29? I'm sorry, we could get out your.
So 20, I have my calculator, right? So
like if we don't pass a levy, I guess, maybe, or whatever, however you want to calculate.
So it's of the prior year expenditures. It'd be like, let's say 61 million. And what was that bottom number? A real rough, under a levy scenario or without?
I mean,
with a levy scenario?
Without maybe?
Okay, without would be 10, was that 10.7?
Yeah, like 20%.
17.8% is where we'd be without the levy. And then if you did it with the 21.7, oopsies, that's billion. We don't want to do that. It would be at 35.7%.
Okay. I just think that's interesting I know the Senate said they don't want to go forward with the 30% cap, but it's interesting to think even if we,
Well, and one of the interesting things is that when you look at the reason why 30% is also difficult to swallow for schools is that that's the minimum that they require for credit ratings. So when you want the best interest rates, when you're going out for a bond type of issue and you're selling bonds, you're not even going to be considered top credit rated by Moody's and those rating organizations if you're not at least at 30%. So that's some of the data that they're looking at to use. So I think the Senate kind of understands that more so than the House does. Any other questions?
Nothing else? Roll call.
Mrs. Galick?
yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yeah.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item C, resolve to approve the attached list for asset disposal. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So this is just a list of assets that we are getting rid of. You'll see here that Rachel Blanchett has been working with Steve Cochiola at the high school to reduce our inventory of musical instruments. In the process of this, we're kind of like, this company is willing to, they did a kind of like a bidding process. They're going to buy these instruments from us. And then we're going to use it to trade in and buy some newer equipment. So kudos to them for getting this in place. They're also working on getting a better replacement cycle for some of the instruments that the district owns. So that's what this is about.
Comments or questions?
I was at the band boosters meeting last night and I talked to Mr. Caciola and he said Rachel has been great to work with to help him get on like a better cycle for replacing instruments and to really make sense of a schedule for some of these instruments are very expensive.
They're very expensive, and some of the ones we have are very old. So we're trying to figure out how we can get a replacement cycle together.
Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yeah.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Item E, resolve to approve the student fees as attached for the 2025-2026 school year. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
So the good news here, I have it outlined, I'll bring it up real quick, is that there are no increases to student fees next year with one exception, which is the actual musical instrument rental fee. Everything else is the same. Your high school fees are at the top, middle school fees here are in the middle, it's appropriately placed, and the elementary school student fees are at the bottom. And then tuition rates for all-day kindergarten and the peer model preschool are listed for you here as well. Again, we've worked with Mr. Cochiola in regarding the musical instrument repair, the rental cost. We've been trying to balance that with repair cost versus the rental income, and we are getting pretty much, I think, on kind of where the sweet spot is. This is per instrument, and that's an annual fee. It's not a monthly fee. A lot of music stores do rent at these rates or a little bit lower, but that's on a monthly basis. So that is the only increase that is proposed for next year.
Comments or questions?
You and I talked about this, Craig, but talking about the instrument rental fee, I know it's gone up every year about $10 for the last like maybe 4 years that I can recall. And we're saying that we might stay at $70 for a while. Is that the thought?
That is the thought. I think we've hit that. I think next year's increase should at least buy us probably 2, maybe 3 years at least, so we can reevaluate it. We'll continue to look at the comparison, but I think we'll be good. Especially, I think part of the combination of this is as we look at newer instruments, there should be less repair costs. So that's also going to be another lever that's a part of the equation that should hopefully come into this factor.
And you are correct that $70 is for the whole year is a good price. I rented my 5th grader a trumpet. It was $40 a month. And she kept wavering whether she wanted to do it or not. So I kept paying the rental fee. So I couldn't commit to a trumpet yet. So.
Big commitment.
It is.
Other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic?
Yeah.
Mrs. Kramer?
Yes.
Mrs. Kwiatkowski?
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara?
Yes.
Mr. Dosen?
Yes, item passes 5-0. Item G, resolve to accept donations as presented. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I know there was questions about the one donation on here of $25,000 from Smith System. I want to thank Mr. Jacob and his administrative team who sat through a timeshare sales deal to win the raffle. Now, in all seriousness, a vendor hosted an open house, and those who attended the open house, their name was put in for a drawing for a free classroom worth of furniture. And Brecksville Broadview Heights High School was the winner. So Mr. Ben Lesh will be getting a redo of his classroom, a refresh with all brand new furniture. So valued at $25,000. And I think that was on a non-work day that Mr. Jacob and his admin team went and did.
Is that furniture from Broyhill?
Yeah. We hope it holds up like that.
Yeah.
Smith Line Furniture, which is a offshoot brand of,
Steel.
Ohio Desk.
No. The company's, oh my gosh. The high expensive stuff that I always say I want to buy in the state house.
I can say no. What?
Steel case.
Steel case. Okay.
Steel case. It's kind of like a Costco. It was great.
Yeah. Great. Comments or questions?
Which I do have one comment. I wanted to thank Mr. Yanaglas because in addition to this being a financial forecast month, so you were really busy. You took the time to write that amazing letter to the Ohio legislature.
Oh.
He wrote this amazing letter to the Ohio legislature advocating for the fair school funding plan and then going into a lot of really good detail about what this 30% cash cap, what havoc would be caused by that. You did a great job explaining it. Anyway, it was just, you were really busy this month, so
Thank you.
appreciate all the work you did.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer.
Yeah.
Mrs. Pikowski.
Yeah.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, item passes 5-0. Moving on to item 10, closing items. Item A, the next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for June 25th at 6 p.m. Item B, resolve to adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call.
Mrs. Gaelic,
Yes.
Mrs. Kramer,
yes.
Mrs. Pikowski.
Yes.
Ms. O'Meara,
Yes.
Mr. Dosen.
Yes, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Happy summer.
I never stopped. I will.
65.
Yeah.